again for joining me at Artlife. Today I'm going to show you a really cool Kmart hack. I started out with a really plain, boring wooden box, and I've turned it into something really exciting and really bright. Come with me and I'll show you how to do it. Before I teach you how to paint this box today, I want to chat really quickly about an artist named Henri Matisse. Now, Matisse was a French artist. He was a painter, but he also liked to do work with collage. He used to cut shapes out of coloured paper, just like this. And he would stick these interesting, organic, random kind of shapes into an artwork and have lots of pops of colour. They were really interesting, just like this one here. Now, sometimes he even used the scraps, the outside of the shape as well. And so we're going to use these organic shapes as influence today when creating our artwork. So you might notice that when I've painted the box here, I've taken some inspiration from Matisse's shapes and used really interesting, random, kind of wobbly shapes, layering them on top of each other using bright colours to build up a really interesting artwork. What you'll need for today's painting lesson, inspired by Henri Matisse, is some acrylic paint. I'm actually using the Matisse brand, but you can use whatever you have. You'll need different size brushes. I also think going back in and adding details with a Sharpie would be great. Today I'm going to be using chalk pens though, so maybe something like this you could use, and some paper. Now, I've put paper in italics here because it's a very loose term. You could use a canvas, you could really paint anything. And today I'm actually going to be painting this cool wooden box. So you can do this painting task on whatever you have. As I said, you can use a canvas or some paper, but today I found this really cool wooden box and it really inspired me to think, what could I paint on it? So today I'm going to be painting this guy. I just got this from Kmart for about $4, I think. It's just pine, so I'm able to paint straight on top of it. And before doing anything, whether you're working on paper or a box, you need to give yourself an idea of what we're painting. And today we're going to be inspired by Matisse, the artist, who absolutely loved shapes. Now, he didn't love shapes that were sort of geometric, the ones that we know, like a triangle or a square or a circle. He loved really random and organic shapes. He used to play a lot with wobbly kind of lines that looked a lot like this. So that's the first thing I'm going to do today. My main kind of subject, I think, is going to be these kind of Matisse shapes as they're known. I might do a couple to start off with. Might have one going that direction and one going in this direction like that. You want it to be more than just shapes, so today I'm going to use organic shapes to create a bit of a flower. So I'm going to come out like this. I'm going to do the same thing again on the other side, so it almost just looks like two leaves there. There's the stem. Now I'm going to do that one more time through the middle, but I'm going to make this one a little bit jazzier like that. There you have it. Now I know it looks a little bit confusing with all the lines at the moment, but we'll work that out in a minute. Okay, I have to imagine that the lid's on, so I need to continue my drawing or whatever I'm doing down onto my sides here. So it is harder painting a three-dimensional surface because you've got so many other sections to consider. I'm going to bring my shapes down once more. And if you make a mistake or if you're not too happy with it, we can paint straight over the pencil. Otherwise, you can rub it out and start again if you would prefer. Now, I really like this flower shape, so I'm actually going to do that one more time. I'm another kind of random Matisse blob shape. This one looks a bit like a flower. I might make him a flower too. All right, I'm not going to draw on every side, but I wanted to just show you the idea. And so now what I'm going to do is paint whatever is furthest behind. So I'm going to choose a background color and just paint my background. Anything that doesn't have a subject, I'm going to paint behind. So I'm going to get a fairly small brush because I want to be able to get into those details really nicely. For my background, I might choose this really vibrant blue. Let's go. Now you don't need to be too particular with this background color. You just sort of need to go up to where you're painting and just make sure you get into all the gaps, the nice clean kind of finish. Now the better quality paint you have, the more vibrant the color is going to be. Notice I'm really not being too picky with my background here because I am going to paint over any lines that aren't overly neat. I'm just sort of colouring in essentially at the moment, so it doesn't take a lot of concentration. I'm just sort of filling in the space. For the art teachers out there, I really love the scope of this task. You know, getting a $4 wooden box from Kmart and saying to the kids, what could this be? It could be so many different things. They could paint so many things on it. They could do paint pouring over the top. They could create their own sort of style. They could turn it into a robot. There's so many different things that this small little wooden box could become. And so I think it's really inspiring and a really open-ended, wonderful art activity for students and any kids or even adults at home as well. This layer dry completely. So once the background is dry, that means I can go back into my artwork and paint the details afterwards. So after the background's dry, I've just gone in with another layer, and it's just a matter of building up the layers as you can see here, and then letting each one dry before adding even more layer and more detail. So I'm just working with some orange now. I'm going to use orange on the top here just to demonstrate to you. I did the green under it with that Matisse sort of style shape. So now I'm working with a fairly small brush, as you can see, because I'm needing to add in a lot more detail, and you need a finer sort of brush to help you with the control. Now, depending on what you want to be the most obvious shapes, they need to be in the foreground or in the front. So I wanted my Matisse shape to go below there. That will just become part of the background. So guys, really all I've done is started out with some basic organic shapes that I've drawn onto my box here, and now I'm just creating layers of colour. You start with whatever is furthest behind, which was this blue here. I'm working and building the layers up. So then I've done another colour, then another colour over the top. Now I've just got this beautiful blue, and I'm going to paint this sort of organic Matisse inspired shape. And working my way around the box just to add some more detail. I'm obviously working quite carefully now to get these edges nice and neat and crisp. And whenever I do a new layer, I'm just painting over the top of the last layer. It'll all come together, I promise. And each time, letting the layers dry so that you can just build them up and paint over the top of each other. What you might notice when working with yellow is that it's quite a transparent colour, so you will need to allow the first layer to dry before going over and giving it a second layer. Whenever working with a really light colour like yellows and oranges, I often will need to do 2 layers, 2 coats. It's often with abstract artworks like this that a mistake can actually help you create a masterpiece. For example, I've done a little whisk of my brush there, which was not intentional. So I now need to make that look like it was meant to be there. And I'm going to do that just by covering this space, make it look like it was going to be one of those circle shapes. There's also a bit of a smudge there, so I might paint over this. I always tell my students, if you make a mistake, you don't start again. You need to think creatively and consider how your mistake can become a masterpiece. That's better. Now notice I've gone in with my new colour pink and done extra shapes over the top of the other shapes. So I'm really just doing what Matisse did. You know, he loved to explore organic shapes and colours. And so I'm just building up these shapes over the top of each other till I have heaps of layers of colour. I'll let that dry till I do another layer. Now you notice I'm just building up the layers as I've been saying, but I am keeping it uniform, which means I am doing a similar design on each of the sides. That kind of makes the design work together and shows a bit of unity when it comes to each of the sides of the box, as you can see. So I am repeating some of the patterns, and that will help to bring the whole artwork together. Now, a good question is, when's the best time to stop? Because you can definitely overdo an artwork. And I think it has to come down to the artist's discretion. You know, we don't want it to get too overboard, or we don't want it to get messy, things like that. We want to keep everything really clear so that the viewer isn't confused by the artwork. So I've done a few layers, but I am being quite controlled with my layers. I'm being quite intentional and careful whenever I'm painting. So that's just a bit of advice if you're planning to create your own artwork. So my intention here is really to give you some steps and the confidence to get started with your own artwork. And if you do choose to decorate a little box like this Kmart one that I've found, please make sure that you post some photos and tag me in Artlife Art Lessons on Facebook, or at artlife.melb on Instagram, because I'd love to see what you've come up with, whether you've adapted this idea or you've come up with your own. I'd love to see what you've done. All right. I'm going to let this box dry completely now of all of the paint, because the lucky last step is going back in and tracing around these beautiful organic shapes just to make them stand out even more. Now you can do that with a Sharpie, but today I'm going to use some liquid chalk markers. I just got these from Kmart for about $3, and I'm going to choose to use these today because they offer a bit more colour and vibrance. We'll do that soon. All right, it's completely dry. And so now, just to clean up some of the edges, make some of these beautiful bright shapes and colors stand out, I'm just going to outline everything. This is an optional extra, and it can be done with some sort of Sharpie or permanent marker, but today I'm actually going to use a chalk marker. A normal texture probably won't work. You won't get the color vibrancy that you need, because a chalk pastel is actually essentially paint that you write with. So you just need to get the color all to the tip of the pen here. And as you can see, when I paint over it, the color is really bright and vibrant. So I'm going to go over every single shape that I've drawn now, as neatly as I can. And that means that any sort of edges that you have painted that you're not too happy with, you'll be able to fix them up with this now. You can also go in and add some details like lines. Just to add more interest to your design. Now the idea is to get as close to the edges of the paint as you can. We don't want a gap, say, like that. It looks a little bit messy and unfinished. So even if you do that, go in and sort of colour so that the edges are really nice and clean. There, I'm done. So it's as simple as that. I really hope you've enjoyed painting and drawing today and taking some influence from Henri Matisse, the really awesome artist using organic shapes. Please make sure that you head over to Facebook and check out the Artlife Art Lessons Facebook page, and also artlife.melb in Instagram, because I post a whole lot of photos there and extra ideas for you. Please don't forget to subscribe below as well, and I'll post at least 2 videos per week.